Did he see what iodine came in the black pants left in the white one? I'm just a hoodlum. Alright. Hello. It is fight week. How long has it been since I've said it is fight week? How long has it been since you've woken up saying to yourself, it's fight week? And what a fucking fight week it is. This card is stacked. And when I say stacked, I mean stacked. I mean stacked. And because it's so stacked, I literally didn't know where to start. I didn't know, like, how am I going to talk about this? Like, how shall I split all of this up? What fight should I talk about? What fight shouldn't I talk about? Because I didn't want to sit here and try and break down every single fight on this card. And to be quite frank with you, I'm not qualified to sit here and break down every single fight on this card, because there's a large number of fighters on this card that I've heard of, I'm aware of, I've seen fight, I like the look of, I don't like the look of so much. But I haven't sat around watching their previous fights and seen both fighters in each fight and seen how they match up, seen what their strengths and weaknesses are, to sit here and genuinely talk to people about who I think is going to win and lose and why I think that's going to happen. So what I've decided to do is split this up. So today I'm going to talk about the undercard, the prelims, what are the prelims called? The fight pass prelims? What's the early prelims? That's what they call. You got the early prelims, the prelims, and then the main card. So I'm just going to pick out some things that I want to talk about in the early prelims and the prelims, and maybe even some things from the main card, and then I'll make separate videos about the fights that I'm really excited about, where I can really feel it in my plums, you know? Where I can really feel it in my plums. Like the fights such as Ferguson against Gaethje, or Cejudo against Cruz, or Ngannou against Rosenstrike, or Stevens against Cater, or Donald Cerrone against Pettis, or Olynyk against Fabrizio Werdum. Well, actually, I'll probably talk about that fight briefly today, because then there'll be nothing left for me to talk about. I just had a hair in my mouth, which is fucking disgusting, but it is what it is. Still there. Got him. All right, cool. So look, let's start talking about these fights then, shall we? Firstly, Ryan Spann against Sam Alvey. Now look, this is one of those fights that I was referring to. I haven't, like, I've seen Ryan Spann fight before, I've seen Sam Alvey fight before, and I haven't really sat there and contemplated this fight enough for me to break down how they're going to match up against each other. But what I will say is, for me, like, a lot of the stuff that I say isn't based off of kind of research. It's not based off of me making a conscious effort to really think about each matchup and see what strengths and weaknesses both fighters have, and then decide upon those strengths and weaknesses where I think what I think the likely scenario is of how this fight will either end or how this fight will play out. Basically, a lot of the things that I talk about, as I've told you guys before, it's just how I kind of perceive things over the 10 or 15 years that I've been watching this sport. And in that time, when I've seen, you know, fighters fight, and I've just kind of built up a memory of what fighters are good and bad at, and then I just kind of think to myself, this is how I think it's going to play out. And to be fair, my kind of record of predictions and stuff like that isn't so bad, to be honest, considering how unpredictable this sport is, which is why we fucking love it. But all of that said, Ryan Spann against Sam Alvey. So for me, Sam Alvey, I think, should be operating at middleweight. Every time I've seen him fight at light heavyweight, funnily enough, he seems slow, seeing as that he's come up to light heavyweight from middleweight. He should have a speed advantage against some of his opponents, because size-wise, he's smaller. But because I don't think he should be a light heavyweight, he just comes into the cage looking a little bit soft, and it's just like he just hasn't bothered kind of doing any cardio or kind of watching what he eats or worrying about nutrition. So he doesn't seem like the best version of himself. This is actually a fighter that I think operates better when he's cutting weight. And there are people like that out there. So Sam Alvey at light heavyweight, I don't really think is the best version of himself. And just looking at his record, oh look, so he's lost his last 3. So he moved up to light heavyweight, and he beat Jean Villante and Marcin Prachniow. But then after that, he's lost to Little Nog, he's lost to Jimmy Crute, and he's lost to Kidson Ebru. So he's on a 3-fight losing streak. So, I mean, if he loses this one against Ryan Spann, he may get cut. There's a good chance he might get cut, you know, but it is what it is. Who knows? Maybe he's only... I don't know how this fight came about. I don't know how it got made, but he may have just taken this fight because, let's face it, the UFC haven't got the full complement of their roster to choose from at the moment. So, you know, it's the matches that are being made aren't just about what makes sense. It's about logistically what's possible, who can physically be in the arena at said time to have this fight. So Ryan Spann, I know it's not simple maths when it comes to MMA, but a Little Nog knocked out Alvey, and then got beat himself by Ryan Spann, knocked out by Ryan Spann. Why is this not working? So yeah, so it was literally about 7 or 8 months apart. So he beat Sam Alvey, then he got knocked out by Ryan Spann himself. So I see, and not just because of that, I just see Ryan Spann as a legit light heavyweight, and I think he's going to be too much for Sam Alvey. Having said that, Sam Alvey and Neil Magny are 2 guys that remind me of each other, because there's been I can think of a number of fights that both of them have been in where they're both the underdog and they've managed to get the win. Also, Sam Alvey is a guy that when I look at him and when I watch him fight, he just seems like a guy that doesn't have power. But he does. He's deceptive. It's the fact that he's always smiling. But he's knocked out a fair few, or not just knocked out, or TKO, whichever one. He's hurt his opponents on a regular basis. So there is danger in this fight for Ryan Spann, but I just think Ryan Spann is going to be too much for Sam Alvey. The next fight is one that I'm definitely looking forward to. Bryce Mitchell against Charles Rosa. Because I like Bryce Mitchell. I like the way he carries himself. I like the way he talks. I like his post-match interviews. I like the fact that he has an opinion. I like the fact that he has a character that I'm interested in. I saw him on the Theo Von podcast, and that podcast was really funny. I definitely recommend it to you guys. I just recommend Theo Von to you guys, to be honest, because he's one of my favorite podcasters out there at the moment. He's one guy whose show I never miss. This feels like it's going to break. He's one guy whose show I never miss. I never miss it. He's one of my favorites. I want to see him when he came to London to do stand up as well. But yeah, Bryce Mitchell, man, like you know, like I know I like Bryce Mitchell because he's one guy that when he kind of burst onto the scene a while back, and he had the opportunity to do post-fight kind of scrum type interviews. What happened was I listened to someone else's, and then sometimes on YouTube it auto plays the next guy. And generally speaking, if I haven't really heard of a guy, or if it's not really someone that I know much about, I won't bother listening to the interview. I just happened to catch some of Bryce Mitchell's scrum. It was about 10 or 15, 20 seconds, and I was looking for my phone because, you know, I use Bluetooth headphones, you know, Bluetooth. So I was looking for my phone, and I grabbed my phone, and I was like, I was quite entertained by the way he was talking, his accent, the things he was saying, the things that he was talking about. He's one guy that keeps it real to himself, man, and he's not trying to be anyone. He's not trying to play a character. He's just, this is him. This is what he's like, and give him his fucking camo shorts. And I like the fact that he's from Arkansas, because Arkansas, I just find that a funny word, you know, and yeah, so Bryce Mitchell from Arkansas. And the reason why I've just grabbed my remote control is I've just noticed this is the early prelim, and if I'm not mistaken, the early prelim it starts at 11 o'clock my time, 11 p.m. my time. And I have a feeling that this fight, or the early prelims, won't be televised on BT Sport. Oh, wrong channel. So I'm just going to, while you guys are watching me, I'm just going to have a look on the old TV guide to see Saturday UFC 249 countdown. No, it's not on TV. Like, why not? Like, what else are you showing? I'll tell you what they're showing. They're showing us UFC 249 countdown. Why not just show us the fights? Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't need to see the countdown again for the 17th time this week. 30 for 30 Benji. Stateside Live. There's nothing happening stateside. Oh no, that's the wrong channel. That's Sky Sports. But yeah, so it looks like I may not be able to watch it on my TV, so I'm going to have to find other means, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but Bryce Mitchell, I haven't really spoken about the fight itself. So both of these guys are guys that are comfortable on the ground. And Bryce Mitchell has definitely shown a tenacity on the ground. And he's like a fucking dog, innit? Once he gets after you, he won't let go. And look, I want him to win. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know much about Charles Rosa. But I like Bryce Mitchell. I want to see him progress up the card. As like every time he fights, I want him to progress up and up and up at the card, because he's like, we need people in the sport that you want to listen to talk. There's so many fighters now, and there's such little opportunity for fighters to like show the character outside the cage. And Bryce Mitchell, for some reason, for me, I've gravitated towards him. So I want to see him do well, because I want to see that character grow within the organization. The next fight, Vicente Luque against Nico Price. These two guys are savages, and this is a sleeper kind of. Well, it's not a sleeper. It's not like a secret, but it's a fight that is that has every possibility to be like a fight of the night, or one of them to get one of the bonuses, because both of these guys go after it. And I used the word tenacious for Bryce Mitchell a minute ago, but Nico Price and Vicente Luque are both tenacious, and I see this being a brutal fight on the feet. Luque's already got a win over Nico Price, so I don't really understand. I mean, in a normal world, I wouldn't really understand the thought process behind this fight, because Luque fought Wonderboy in his last fight, and although he lost that by unanimous decision, he did show flashes of an improved fighter. And if we were under normal circumstances, I think that performance warrants Luque to fight someone that is closer to the top 10 than Nico Price is. And I don't know where these guys are ranked, but just maybe not even close to the top 10, just someone that has I suppose a bigger kind of name value than Nico Price. But they're restricted. The UFC are restricted in who they can pick for each of these matchups. So maybe that's why both of these guys wanted to fight, and this was a fight that was available. It makes sense for Nico Price to try and get that loss off his record by winning the rematch. But I don't see it happening. I think Luque is more of a technical striker, and he's a little bit more wily in there. And I think he'll find an opportunity to catch Nico Price. And I see Luque potentially either finishing him or it being the kind of fight that is equal in a lot of the fight will play out quite equally. But I think Luque's just got that little bit more where he'll be able to find gaps and opportunities to make his strikes count more than Price is able to. So he'll inflict more damage. So it'll just be one of them where Luque just kind of wins each of the 3 rounds by a big enough margin for it to be like a clear unanimous decision. The next fight, Uriah Hall against Racharé. So Uriah Hall was that guy in it. So I remember watching him in the Ultimate Fighter, and after that first KO he had, that spinning heel kick was it. It was like that was it. It was just a done deal for me in my head. It was just like, well, that's it. He's gonna win, innit? Like, he's just head and shoulders above the rest. It's like, take him out of this now and just put him on the main roster, because within a year or two he should be fighting Anderson Silva. Like in my head back then when I was watching it, and I'm interested. Oh, bloody hell! Fucking 7 years ago that was. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it was 7 years ago, but I distinctly remember that. And then I remember how kind of shocked I was that he lost to Gastelum in the final. I was shocked that Gastelum got to the final because he fought that Josh Salmon, didn't he? That Salmon passed away. I'm pretty sure that Josh Salmon, is that his name? Josh? It might not even be Josh. I'm sure he passed away, or was that someone else? Yeah, he passed away, didn't he? He was a stud, wasn't he? He was a good-looking guy, Josh Salmon. Sad times. But yeah, because I in my head at the time I thought it was going to be Josh Salmon against Uriah Hall, and obviously it didn't play out like that. But why am I even talking about this? Oh yeah, Jacare and Uriah Hall. So Uriah Hall was that one guy that's kind of always flattered to deceive, innit? Because he's always like he's had wins, and it seems like, oh, that's it. He's like, so when he beat Gegard Mousasi, and it felt like this is it. Like he's finally tapped into the headspace he needs to be in to realize his potential, but it's never really quite worked out for him. But yeah, it is what it is. But this is I'm not going to sit here and say Uriah Hall is on a kind of downward spiral, but I'm just going to say he hasn't reached the potential that I thought that he was going to reach. And he's a very hot and cold fighter. Like sometimes you'll see like a version of himself where you think this guy is a very talented fighter, and then you see a version of him that's kind of quite hesitant, and he doesn't really start flowing, and he fights within himself, and then he lets his opponent, it's not like he lets him, but his opponent sees these hesitancies in him, and they kind of overwhelm him. And Jacare's a guy that kind of, look, he's quite old. I'm looking at his Wikipedia page now. He's 40 years old. He's been in the game for a number of years, and he was on the brink of a title shot for ages. And he's had a bit of a, hold on, is this at middleweight or light heavyweight? Because I know he lost his last fight. I don't know what weight this is at, because it should be at middleweight. I know Jacare lost his last fight at light heavyweight to Jan Blachowicz. But I'm guessing this is at middleweight. This is at middleweight, because I've never seen Uriah Hall fight at light heavyweight. But yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a nothing fight, really. Because even if Jacare wins, it's not really an indication of where he is in terms of whether he's still at the same level that he was when he was at the brink of a title shot. Do you know what I mean? It's like, obviously it depends on the kind of performance he puts in, because Uriah Hall is dangerous on the feet. And Jacare, it feels like to me he's slowed down a little bit. And he's kind of started to, he's kind of ignores his strength, which is his jiu-jitsu. And he's turned into this guy that just likes to stand a lot. And Uriah Hall's weakness is being on the ground. So logic would dictate a game plan for Jacare where he closes the distance, shoots, gets Uriah Hall on the floor, and just drowns him, basically. But will he do that? Is he going to try and stand with Uriah Hall and expose weaknesses in his own game to Uriah Hall and give Uriah Hall an opportunity to win this fight? Like, this is a fight that Jacare should win every single day of the week and twice on Sunday, like Stone Cold Steve Austin said all those years ago. But will he play to his own strengths, or is he still in love with his striking, and is he still going to try to stand with Uriah Hall? I'm just looking at his most recent kind of record, and a lot of them have been TKO, KO. He's got a submission against Tim Boetsch. So yeah, like, he got knocked out by Robert Whittaker, and Robert Whittaker's obviously he's at the top of the division, but that fight there, that was a fight where Jacare didn't, from memory, and I might be wrong, he didn't try to take Whittaker down. He was standing with him. So, like, we'll see, innit? We'll see. But for me, Jacare should win this fight. But if he ignores the fact that he's a jiu-jitsu specialist and tries to stand with Uriah Hall, it will give Uriah Hall an opportunity to beat him, to finish him. So moving on to the next fight, Carla Esparza against Michelle Waterson, the karate hottie. So I'm pretty sure Carla Esparza was like, she was struggling financially, if I'm not mistaken. Unless I've got muddled up with a different female fighter. But she was, and then she had to sell her motorbike that she won in the Ultimate Fighter. She's a woman that is an ex-champion. Like, it seems like it's so long ago, but she won the belt after winning Ultimate Fighter. She beat Rose Namajunas, yeah. So I'm just looking at her record now, and that was in 2014. And from that performance and that fight, look how far the division's moved. Do you know what I mean? Like, Carla Esparza is definitely a vet, but she's still got something left in the tank. And this fight here is, so again, this is just from memory. Michelle Waterson's a fighter that likes to keep it standing. Her stand-up is her strength. And Carla Esparza's a grappler, and she likes to take you down and ground and pound and just kind of grind out a win that way. I just feel like Carla Esparza is going to be a lot physically stronger than Michelle Waterson. Now, whether Michelle Waterson is able to keep the fight standing, that is how we basically, if we see a fight where the karate hottie Michelle Waterson can keep it standing, she'll win. If she can't, then she's going to be in a world of trouble. And Carla Esparza's had injury trouble and stuff like that. Did she get suspended? I think she got suspended for like by a USADA violation, and I need to check this because it's going to piss me off otherwise. Well, let me check the motorbike thing first, because I might just be getting this fucking totally. Yep, Carla Esparza selling tough motorcycle to help make ends meet. When was that? 2016. I remembered that. See? I'm the fucking oracle. Carla Esparza. Now let's Google injuries. Shoulder surgery, likely out 6 to 8 weeks. Now that was 2015. That doesn't count. She's suspended. Suspension. Maybe not. Carla Esparza. This is the last thing I'm going to Google while you lot are just sitting here watching me Google, which must be so fucking boring. Carla Esparza USADA. No, she didn't get suspended. Fuck knows. Maybe I'm just lying to you guys then. Why did she want to sell a motorbike then? It might have been because of injury. Because looking at her record, nah, she's been alright. 2018. Well, she fought twice last year. She fights twice a year. Fuck knows, man. I don't even know why I'm checking all this stuff. But yeah, so that's it. That's my kind of thoughts about the fight. If Michelle Waterson can keep it standing, then she wins the fight. And I don't know whether Esparza's kind of slowed down, because she's a grinder, and if she's slowed down, then Esparza might be able to stay elusive enough to keep it on her feet and just pop shot and just kind of keep it moving. But if Esparza gets hold of Waterson, I think she's just way stronger and she'll be able to get her down and grind it out. So in terms of prediction, I think Michelle Waterson might have too much for her. I think Waterson, Waterson might have too much for her on this occasion. I think this might be a step too far for Esparza, but don't kind of fucking, hold me to that. The last fight that I want to discuss is Oleinik against Verdum. So first and foremost, I thought Verdum had asked for his release and the UFC granted it. I didn't realise he was still part of the card, and apparently Verdum's one of these guys that have grasped and he's managed to get. So he violated a USADA kind of thing, and he got suspended, and they cut his suspension short because he snitched. He grasped the same way John Jones did. You know what I don't understand is, if you're a fighter and you get suspended, and then during your suspension or your hearing or your right to appeal or whatever, you say, no, I didn't do it, it must have been this supplement or it must have been that. I definitely didn't take whatever it is that I've popped for. And then you get suspended because they don't believe you. And then you go and become an informant. And then once you become an informant, then they cut your suspension short. But then it's like, if you didn't cheat in the first place, how do you know all this stuff then? How do you know who to snitch on? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why I'm thinking so low. If you've not cheated, then how do you know who's supplying drugs and stuff like that? Who's supplying all of these steroids and whatnot? Convenient, innit? How convenient. But anyway, he's back, and he's fighting Oleinik, which is a good fight for him to come back on. So Oleinik is like he's like a rugby player almost, because you can hit him as much as you want, but he'll still keep coming back. Do you know what I mean? He just got that, like, he's like one of them, like in a movie where you get a guy that just won't stay down, he just won't die, and you're like, fucking hell, he's back again. Do you know what I mean? He's just like he's Russian, innit? Do you know what I mean? He doesn't know how to, he just doesn't know, it's like he doesn't know when he's hurt. Like, he gets hit, and then he's like his brain don't register pain. Like, it doesn't know that, fuck, he just got, oh shit, that just hurt there. Like, he doesn't know that feeling of being hurt. What is this? That's just probably what goes on in his head. Oh, what is that? And then he just carries on fighting. Do you know what I mean? Fucking 72, he's had 72 fights. How old is he? 42 years old. Old enough to be your dad. And he's had 72 fights. How many times has he been knocked out? 7. So he gets knocked out 1 in every 10 fights. Imagine having 72 fights and not being a specialist on the feet, but only getting knocked out 7 times. Of his 13 losses, he's been submitted twice and 4 decision losses. And every time he fights in the UFC, he's just one of these guys that fucking you think shouldn't be in there with whoever he's fighting. Like, he just looks awkward and like just plodding along and head down and like that arched back sort of thing. And he just doesn't look very mobile or fluid, and he looks old, but he can take a punch. Just looking at his record now, as I was just banging on about how he doesn't get knocked out, two of his last 3 losses have been by knockout. Overeem and Walt Harris back in 2019. So the Overeem one, I remember the knee and the punches. The Walt Harris one, I don't remember. I don't even know if I saw that fight. Well, I did see the Dos Anjos Edwards fight, so I just don't remember it. I must have seen it. It was only 12 seconds long. So he might have got caught cold, or his chin has finally deserted him. He's finally started to register pain. Oh, that hurts. That wasn't a very good Russian accent. What? That hurt me. Oh, what is this? It's a fucking pain. Oh, shit. But you know what I mean? But he has come back and won. He's won one since then, in January actually. So he's fought quite recently. He's on it. But let's focus on the grass, the snitch, Verdum. He's a weird character, innit? I was listening to what's it called? Weighing In with the Punk Thompson and Big John McCarthy, and they were talking about Verdum, and he's one of them. Like I was talking about when I was talking about Sam Alvey, he's one of them guys that like have been an underdog in a fight where you expect him to lose, and he's ended up winning. And the obviously the most the most kind of famous one was when he fought Fedor. Where was it? In Strikeforce? Yeah, Strikeforce or Bellator? Strikeforce. Yeah, it was in Strikeforce. And then the fight against Overeem, which is an awkward kind of final for the Grand Prix, when kind of like Verdum was just adamant he wanted Overeem on the ground, and he was just like lying down. But there were parts in that fight when they were standing, Verdum was winning from memory again, and that's going back 9 years. 2011, bloody hell. I remember that so well when Scott Coker announced it, and all of the heavyweights were stood on the stage next to each other. And then I was looking at it thinking to myself, Strikeforce low-key got a better heavyweight roster than the UFC have right now. Just looking at all of the different faces on the stage, and obviously you had Overeem and wait, hold on. So which one did unless there were two Grand Prix, I think there were two heavyweight Grand Prix they had, because I know Cormier won one. Cormier must have won the second one, and the first one would have been when Overeem. Who was part of that? I'll have to just Google this in my own time, because you don't want to hear about a 2011 Grand Prix when I'm sat here trying to talk about UFC 249, which is happening this weekend live on pay-per-view and ESPN Plus. But yeah, Verdum. So like the same token where he's won fights that he was the underdog in, he's also lost fights where he was the overwhelming favourite in. So where he beat Cain Velasquez and no one expected him to, he lost to Volkov most recently back in 2018. Where he beat Fedor when a lot of people didn't expect him to. He lost to Stipe, where a lot of people expected him to win. Verdum's like a quirky kind of guy, and he's not afraid to take risks and chances on the feet, because he doesn't mind ending up on his back with his opponent on top of him, provided he's not hurt at that point. Which is why when we saw him fight Travis Browne, he just came out and did a fucking flying kick like his name's Karate Kid. Like, just off the bat. That was the first thing he did in the fight. Do you know what I mean? No feeling out process. He just smiled, did that weird kind of smile that he does. He just came running out with that flying kick, and he connected. Like, this fight I'm really interested in, because I want to see where Verdum's at. Clearly, he got done with a USADA violation, so you'd imagine he's clean now. He's also, he's 42 as well, so he's not exactly a spring chicken. And that fight against Volkov was in March 2018, so 2 years ago basically he last fought. So in those last 2 years, how active has he been when it comes to training, and how much has he slowed down as he's grown older? And Oleinik is a good kind of gauge to judge him in, because Verdum 2 or 3 years ago would beat Oleinik in all areas of a fight, whether it's on the ground, whether they're grappling, whether it's whether it's on the ground, or whether they're standing. But he's been inactive. He's probably not on the juice anymore. Obviously if he was proper on the juice before. So we're going to see what version of Verdum is here. And looking at the heavyweight division at the moment, you've got like 2, 3, 4 fighters at the top of it. You've got Cormier, Stipe, and then you've got Ngannou, provided he beats Rosenstrike. But then apart from that, there's not really much going on by way of next in line for a title shot. Do you know what I mean? And why I'm saying this is, like, Verdum beats Oleinik now, gets another win or two later this year, beginning of next year, he could be in position, just because of the strength of his resume. He could be in position for a title. Like, he can potentially have another run at the title, but it just depends on what version he is now compared to him at his peak, which was when he was champion. So yeah, I'd be really interested to see how he is, how he performs. That fight against Volkov was, I remember, because I had I had an accumulator that day. And for those of you that don't know what an accumulator is, it's where you bet on a number of fights. And I had bet on, I think, 4 fights that all came in. And I distinctly remember that fight card, Jimmy Manuwa lost to Jan Blachowicz, and I didn't bet on that fight because I had seen how Jimmy Manuwa lost to No Time Ozdemir, and I felt, I'd felt like Jimmy Manuwa was slowing down a little bit, and it felt like Jan Blachowicz was kind of on this upward trend, and I was hesitant to bet on Jimmy Manuwa. On that fight, even though, you know, he was one of my favourite fighters, being a fellow London boy. So yeah, I didn't include Jimmy Manuwa on that bet, and I probably bet like £20, and I probably stood to win like 100 and something quid. And fucking Verdum fucked it all up for me, because obviously I bet on Verdum to beat Volkov, and he didn't. Like, I know I bet on Leon Edwards, I bet on Diakise, because no, I didn't. Who did I bet on? It doesn't really matter. But anyway, so going back to this fight, I'm just talking to myself. These are just things that I think, and I should just keep them as thoughts rather than talking about them. But anyway, Verdum, like, as I was saying, there's fights where he's been underdog, we've seen him win, and there's fights where he's been overwhelming favourite, we've seen him lose. I'm just interested to see how close he is to a peak Verdum when he fights Oleinik on Saturday. He should win this fight. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna predict that he's gonna win this fight, but I 100% won't be surprised if he doesn't win this fight, because, like I say, he's been inactive. Presumably he's off the juice now, and I don't know how much he was on it before, but it's gonna take something away, and just his inactivity at this age, I don't know how much he's been training and how much he's been in the gym and how much he's been keeping his skills at the level that they were at before he got suspended. So yeah, my prediction is Verdum, but I wouldn't be surprised if Oleinik beats him. And I'm going to get off the fence now. I'm going to climb off that fence. Oh, the last fight I want to talk about, and not for reasons of kind of, I'm really excited about this. It's actually this fucking Greg Hardy against Jorgen De Castro. Like, I'm obviously clearly not American, innit? So when we're sitting here thinking about Greg Hardy fighting, when I say where, I'm talking about me, myself and I. When I'm sitting here thinking about Greg Hardy, and I think to myself, who the fuck is that guy? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't give a fuck that he played American football. I know nothing about the sport. It means nothing to me. But he always seems to get himself a spot on a card, and then I think to myself, well, surely this fight should be there, or that fight should be there. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose if you're American and you're watching this and you watch my channel and whatnot, then put a comment and let me know the significance of Greg Hardy. Like, I know his backstory. I know he's had his troubles. I know he's been accused of some very horrible things. I know he got kicked out of the NFL, or I don't know, sacked or whatever it is. Like, he's not an American footballer now, basically. So he turned his attention to MMA. And I know, like, this was a moral dilemma for Ara Helwani and Luke Thomas and the man in the hat, the legend, Chuck Millenhall. when they were discussing Greg Hardy making his debut for the UFC in a main event slot. And you know, they were kind of saying he like, what the fuck sort of thing, in you know, to put it bluntly. But like, he clearly hasn't rised up the ranks at a crazy rate. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's won more than he's lost. But the thing about this guy is, he's like, even the fights that he's won haven't really been amazingly kind of impressive. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I hear Americans talk about American football, they talk about, man, what an athlete. This guy's an athlete. He ran the 4.4 in 44. Whatever the fuck that means. Oh, his vertical leap is fucking 3.8, man. Whatever that... Do you know what I mean? Like, they talk about these stats that mean fuck all to me. So, in my head, you got Greg Hardy, whose 4.4 is a 44... And, you know, his fucking, vertical leap, man. Oh, did you see his combine scores? Did you see his combine scores? So, I don't know what a combine is, but I've heard people talk about it. The point is, this man has, like, I want to see some athleticism. Like, if he's an American footballer, I want to see some of that fucking athleticism. Because otherwise, he may as well not be. Do you know what I mean? Like, what am I meant to be seeing here? I don't understand it. I don't get it. Like, I just see a guy that is a top 20 heavyweight in the UFC, which isn't saying a lot, because it's probably about 17 heavyweights in the UFC heavyweight division. Like, he's not done anything that has impressed me. He's not done anything bad. He's just, you can tell he's inexperienced. You can tell he's not at a level that warrants the positions he gets on cards. So I'm assuming the fact that he was an American footballer and he's had this kind of controversial past holds him in good stead in that regard, because clearly he keeps getting these positions. But as an Englishman, like, I don't watch American football, so I don't get this Greg Hardy experiment that's going on at the moment. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's, like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like, he's a fighter that has the skill level of someone that should be fighting on undercards in the UFC. And look, a lot of the time, these, you know, fighters are like, oh no, I prefer fighting on the prelims because more people get to see me and I get to raise my profile. But that's all well and good. But if you're the UFC and you want people's eyeballs on your product, and Greg Hardy's the guy to do it, no one's buying a pay-per-view for Greg Hardy. But you might get people to watch it for free on ESPN if you put him on there. And if you do that, then you get to see the return of Verdum on the main card. Or you get to see Bryce Mitchell on the main card. Or you get to see Jacare against Uriah Hall on the main card. Or you get to see Carla Esparza against Michelle Waterson on the main card. Do you know what I mean? Like, these are guys that are proven fighters when it comes to the sport of mixed martial arts. And they're proven fighters within their respective weight classes within the UFC roster. Like, they've beaten good names. All of the guys that I've mentioned. Greg Hardy hasn't, you know? He hasn't. And I know he's inexperienced and stuff. And this isn't me just having a guy at him for the sake of having a guy. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. This is just me trying to understand the logic behind just putting him up there when clearly he doesn't seem like he's ready. That's I suppose that's what I'm trying to say, really. So yeah, so that's just kind of that just kind of is my thought on that fight. I'm not even going to tell you who I think's going to win or lose, because I don't know enough about his opponent, if I'm honest with you. That's a fight that's got undercard written all over it, but it's in the main card because it's Greg Hardy. And yeah, that's just it, really. But yeah, so that's it. That's kind of me thinking out loud about UFC, the undercard, the prelims, the prelims of UFC 249. Like I said, no research, no real hard work has gone into this, as you can probably tell. A lot of the time I didn't even talk about UFC 249. It was just me talking about Strikeforce in 2011 or The Ultimate Fighter in 2013 or whatever it was. But this is how my brain works. This is how I process things. I just say them out loud as I'm thinking about them. I don't make notes. Like, you can probably see. No, you can't really see, can you? But like, this is, I literally just flick from Wikipedia page to Wikipedia page while I'm here thinking out loud. What I'm gonna do though is any fight that I've made a prediction on in this video, which, let me go back to the all right, so I bet on, so I said Span's gonna win, Mitchell, Luque, Jacare, Waterson, Vadum. So I'm going to put a $5 on all of those in an ACA, in an accumulator. And then I'll let you guys know how I get on when I do my post-fight interview, post-fight review. What I'll do is I'll stick an ACA on like every single fight on this card, apart from the Greg Hardy, Jorgen De Castro fight. I might actually start Googling Jorgen De Castro, because if I look at him, I'll probably recognise him and I'll remember like where I've seen him fight or whatever. But now's not the time to do that, as I'm actually physically doing it. Oh yeah, I know this dude. Chubby guy. Lovely set of tits on him, you know? I wouldn't say that to his face. He'd knock me the fuck out. All right, cool. That's it. That is my look at UFC 249. The undercard, the prelims, and the early prelims. I'm going to be making more videos this week talking about fights that I'm interested in and really get into the meat of it. You know, the crux of the matter when it comes to the fights that I care about. Not that I don't care about these fights, but you know what I mean, the fights that I've given a lot of care and attention to when thinking about them. So yeah, so definitely, if you've enjoyed this, I've enjoyed making it, and I don't know whether you guys will enjoy watching it, to be honest, because it's nearly 50 minutes of me just sitting here just thinking out loud, to be honest with you, checking on my TV to see if the early prelims are going to be on telly and stuff like that. I mean, it's riveting stuff, really, isn't it? Let's be honest, guys. All right, cool. I'm gonna leave it there. Go in the description of this video, and subscribe to my podcast, because longer ones like this video here, will 100% be uploaded as a podcast way before it's uploaded as a video on YouTube. That's just a casual FYI for you guys. So yeah, subscribe to the podcast, listen to me there, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the like button if you haven't already, share it with a friend if you haven't already, and leave comments. Let me know what you guys think about some of the stuff that I've said during this video. Please bear in mind, this is just me literally looking at the card now and just giving you guys my thoughts without doing any research, without doing any kind of due diligence, which is kind of my fault really. But I'm not like a super fucking fan, do you know what I mean? I enjoy the sport, and I've been watching it for a number of years, so I've built up a good kind of library of perceptions about fighters and fights and different things that have happened during the time that I've been a fan of the sport. So I think like my opinions do have some logic behind them. But at the same time, I know I miss things. I know I miss things because I just don't spend enough time, you know, really studying fighters and how they match up against their opponents. Do you know what I mean? So I'm open and I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong. And if you've heard me say something that you don't agree with, feel free to put it in the comments, because I read it. I'll read it and then I'll respond. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll hold my hands up. But more often than not, I'm right. I'm right 87% of the time, 100% of the time. So yeah, that's it, man. I'm gonna go have a piss, get into bed because it's quite late here, and I'll catch you guys next time.